This is the part where things have been getting weird lately. Billy saw something in his pantry. It was white and transparent, and when it turned to look at him, it was an old woman with no eyes and an open mouth. I have been receiving text messages from their dead great-grandmother Vera. I've never met her, and I do know her spirit dwells in the house. I have seen her. She sends me texts at the same time every night, and this started about 3 days ago. She usually sends them about 3 every morning. The first one said, "Vera guard gone solider lonely pain," and then the second one said, "Boys will suffer for lengths worn listen, protect please." And the final one that I received this morning said, "Emotion, stress, weaken, strengthen, suicide." I had no idea what to make of all this, and I finally got the guts to text back, and I said, "Why me? How do I protect?" She replied, "No," 6 times, and then I replied, "Why me?" She sent me the last text I've received so far. "You love him and family." The weird part is that they are coming from Alex's phone, but none show up on his phone, and we even pulled up the records and they aren't there either. I don't know how to react to all of this, and I would like help. Thank you for listening. One day I asked to go and we drove up there at about 8 at night, and I had brought my camera. The house was well lit by a street light, and I had hoped for some great shots. I began to snap pictures rapidly, but the house wouldn't show up, not event the glare off of the street lights. All I got was a black picture and weird orbs floating next to where the house should be in the pictures. We were all scared then. That was the beginning. 5 months passed by quietly. A few bumps in the night here and there, nothing major. Things picked up again when we were home alone one night. We all sat in Billy's room, and it was about 11. We had turned out all the lights, and we were all lying on the bed talking. All of a sudden, there was a loud bang. It made us jump, and we rushed out of the bedroom into the living area. There, we found a FedEx box 15 feet from where it was laid originally, and all the doors were open and all the lights on. We ran outside and sat in the car until it was time for me to return home. Things got quiet again, but not too quiet. Things still moved, and there were doors flying open at 2 in the morning and blinking electricity. We didn't think much about it. Alex and Billy got the idea to try to record voices one night. They lit a candle and began to record. It was about 2 in the morning. They asked random question and pretty much made a joke out of it. Alex reached over from his easy chair to hand Billy the recorder when he said an invisible force slammed his head down onto the coffee table. The boys became scared and ran to Billy's room. They sat in the middle of the bed and said they heard laughing, and it sounded like heavy footsteps running all through the house. The boys slept in the same room that night. When they woke up, Billy's closet doorknob was about torn clean off. This is my haunting. My fiancé, his brother, and his brother's friend are being attacked, haunted, tormented, whatever you want to call it, by a malicious and evil spirit. This is a long story, but I really need help. Please read. This story begins about 1.5 years ago down on the river. My fiancé Alex and his brother Billy and their friend James hung out almost the entire summer. Billy and James got bored one night and decided to go adventuring. The boys drove down the road and ended up stopping in front of an old, empty summer home. Billy and James broke into the house and thus began to wreak havoc. They smashed furniture and electronics and broke windows and doors. James even went as far as to have sex on many of the beds. They made a crude Ouija board and tried to work it. They never stopped to think of what might be living there that they couldn't see. Well, after about 2 weeks, the boys got bored and left the house alone. They forgot all about it. But the house didn't forget them. One day, Billy got bored and went out for a drive. He decided to drive past the abandoned home and see if anybody had found the vandalism yet. As he cruised by, Billy locked eyes with a pale little girl with eyes as black as coal. Billy felt a weird tingling and quickly turned the truck around and went home. His room wasn't quite the same after that. He began hearing bumps and groans in the night and early morning, and he'd see things out of the corner of his eyes. Things would become displaced, his iPod malfunctioned and died. Billy became disturbed, and he begged Alex and James to go back up to the house with him to see if the girl was there. They agreed, and they drove up there that night. When they arrived, the house was empty as usual. James and Billy went exploring in the house while Alex sat in the driveway. Well, of course, the younger boys found something to wreck, and they came out playing with a fire extinguisher. Eventually, they became bored and left, leaving the fire extinguisher in the yard. Arriving home, the boys went out to Alex's remodeled porch/bedroom to hang out. A couple of minutes later, Alex complained of sharp pains in his back. James said his stomach was hurting. They went to the bathroom to investigate. Alex pulled up his shirt to look, and Billy and James gasped. There were long, bloody scratches down his back. James quickly pulled up his and found red handprints across his abdomen. Neither could explain. They never went back to the house. Now, my last experience at the house, and the one that frightened me the most. It was a normal night until I woke up from sleep. When I woke up, there was an odd yellowish light against the wall in my room, and in front of it, maybe a foot from my bed, was a tall shadow figure. He was just staring at me. There were no facial features that I could make out, but he did have hair. I freaked out and started flailing in pure fright. I remember my foot flailed out towards it and touched the being. Then suddenly it was dark again, and I was laying in my bed, still staring at that one spot. Another that did scare me was one night a few years after all the others, when I had sneaked out. This isn't something I normally did. I don't like doing bad things, but I did anyways to go see my girlfriend. I am still with this girl, by the way. I was biking down the road and heard a dog barking. I sped up because the thought of a dog attacking me was just scary. I turned my head on my bike to look towards the noise. A black dog was running across the road at me. I faced forward and pedaled as hard as I could. I could feel the dog closing in on me, then a car passed by. I heard just a soft thump, like they had hit the dog. I wondered why they didn't stop and turned to look at the dog, but it was gone, completely. None of these experiences have occurred again or seem to have any relevance in my life besides just scaring me. I have had no experiences since then. The only reason I think I had those experiences in the first place was the sadness from being bullied. I used to fall asleep every night, crying, and come home and cry to my mom about it. Bullying was something new to me at the time. Of course, there's nothing that can be done about these experiences, but I thought I would share my own experiences after reading so many others. Any thoughts or ideas about why this could have occurred, or maybe what any of it could mean, would be helpful. I am now a 17-year-old male with a strong belief in the supernatural. Several years ago, when I was in the 5th grade, I was bullied a lot, starting from the very first day of school. It started literally within the first 30 seconds of getting on the bus that the bullying began. However, I doubt that these little details are actually related to my few unfantastical incidences. I moved from the house where these experiences took place slightly over a year ago. I was 12 when the slight experiences began. The first experience was on a cloudy day after I had gotten home from school. I was going to hang out in the woods behind my house, the place where I went to escape from my own bullying, and I saw her for the first and possibly the last time. I have poor eyesight and wear glasses, but she was so clear when I saw her. She seemed to be young. She was gray like the clouds, and she appeared to be dancing. She was small, spinning, wearing a floral sundress. I saw her and ran to her. She disappeared behind some trees and then was gone. Later experiences with her did occur, I'm sure. There was a scent whenever she was around in the woods. It was a smell like rotten eggs, and something physical always occurred after the smell. However, I didn't smell it the first time I saw her. I think it's because I was too far away. The other 2 times I remember clearly were when my friend took a turtle shell and I, inclined to believe in such things, went to return it. There was that vile scent, and I was tripped by something large in front of my foot, but nothing was there. The last time there was the smell and a shuffle of movement that ruffled the leaves that had fallen. Inside my home was where the worst of my mostly uneventful spiritual encounters had occurred. The first was I was playing games, a normal kid thing, and I put my controller on the floor when I was done. Later, I looked down for no apparent reason, and saw a perfectly solid, bright white hand reaching for the controller that pulled back unbelievably fast and disappeared. I leaped from the bed to the door and hid from there for a while. One of my last few experiences may have been just my mind, but after these experiences, I couldn't ignore this one as being just in my head. I was always afraid of the dark and having my closet door open, but I slept in the dark anyways. However, I always closed the closet door every night. That night, I woke up to dark and my closet doors were opening and closing, like they were being pushed and pulled by something. There was something in my closet, on the floor. It glowed white, and I didn't move to get a good view of it, but my mind told me it was a skeleton. I froze until it stopped, then ducked under the cover until I eventually fell asleep from exhaustion once the terror passed. After I kicked my way frantically to the head of the bed, I surveyed the room as my eyes adjusted to whatever ambient light was around. Once I was satisfied that whatever it was gone, I began to rationalize what had just happened, that I clearly had fallen asleep at the foot of the bed while playing Xbox. I ruled that out because the TV was off, and tired or not, I would have remembered laying back at the foot of the bed. I recounted that I had distinctly curled up at the top part of the bed. Then I really began to get scared. I had really been dragged, that was irrefutable, due to my moment of falling after the thing vanished. It had been supporting me, and when it vanished, I lost that support and fell. My next thought entertained the possibility that something was in my room that night. What did it want? Why was it dragging me so? To be quite honest, by the way it was dragging me and had one leg on either side of its broad torso, it was trying to do some horrid sex act. This didn't make much sense, as I was fully clothed, lack of blankets, and her family's proximity had ensured that have someone coming in to check on the baby and getting a full Monty for their trouble. But it was the only thing I could think of. I am fully aware of sleep paralysis as well. I had never had it before and have not had an episode since. I have seen documentaries on the subject, and sufferers have episodes on more than one occasion. And though there are sensations of movement involved in these happenings, the victims usually awaken unharmed, though scared, in their beds. The way I understood it, in a sleep paralytic episode, you may feel like aliens are dragging you by your ankle down the hall, telling you that you're going to outer space with them. You're freaking out and wake up as they reach your stairs. The aliens vanish, but you're in bed right where you fell asleep when you wake up. If I had sleep paralysis, I definitely did not wake up where I fell asleep. Another thing, to go from the top of the bed to the bottom isn't easy, even squirming or sleepwalking in your sleep. It can be done, you can kind of drag yourself with your legs, but it's not easy. It takes focus and leg strain that I didn't have upon waking. I have been backward and forward with this. Looked online for anyone with similar experiences, and I can't find anything. My incident took place in Athens, Alabama, in a quiet rural home on an otherwise normal street. I lived there with my ex, her mother, her sister, and her stepfather, as well as our collection of dogs. This house, though old, did not have any history of death or violence. Several times earlier in the relationship, my ex mentioned offhandedly that she would occasionally hear children playing outside of the house, small children. Now this in and of itself would not be odd, were it not for the fact that there were maybe 6 families, including ours, within any respectable distance of the house. And the youngest children in the area were approximately 12 years old. They lived across the street, and though I did not know them personally, I knew them well enough that they did not sound like little children. We did not pay much heed, as these incidences with the children were rare, and by the time you heard them, you had almost forgotten they were even an issue. Such was the hustle and bustle of life. The bed my ex and young son shared was pretty much a box springs and a mattress on top, set right on the floor, and was pushed into the corner of the room. There was open floor space near the foot of the bed, about 3 feet, and a television sitting on its stand against the far wall. My typical routine was to stand, watch over her kid, she was loose, waiting for him to wake, and be there to tend to him so she could sleep. I would play Xbox while sitting at the foot of the bed. About 2 a.m., I would turn off the game, make sure Sunny was okay, and curl up near the head of the bed. This particular night, though, I woke up to something tugging on me. Not so hard as to wake me, but hard enough to drag me, maybe 1.5 feet at a time, toward the foot of the bed. First tug. I thought I was dreaming. I have been rather good at realizing that a nightmare is just a nightmare, scary as it may be. Second tug. I managed to assess what was going on. This thing, and yes, I say thing because it was taller and broader than any man should be. I realized that it had its arms wrapped around my lower legs just below the knee. In that flash, it made sense that with all the junk to the immediate left of the bed, that it would stand at the foot for stability. And that part of my legs was easiest to reach. It wasn't so much pulling with its arms as using its back to lean back. It got a third pull in before I fully realized that this was happening. I began to kick violently, which I don't think this thing was expecting. I got one leg free. The third tug had my legs nearly up under its considerably high up armpits. As soon as I felt one leg get free, the other ceased to be seized. The whole entity vanished.